When Christina Applegate first stepped onto the set of Married with Children in 1987, she was just 15 years old, a teenager walking into one of the most controversial sitcoms in television history. The show was edgy, provocative, and constantly pushing the boundaries of what network television would allow. Right in the middle of all that chaos was a young girl who needed someone to look out for her. That someone turned out to be Ed O'Neill, and what developed between them over the next 4 decades is one of Hollywood's most quietly remarkable stories. What most people never realized is that Ed O'Neill took on a role far more important than playing Al Bundy. He became Christina's protector, her mentor, and in many ways, the father figure she needed during one of the most vulnerable periods of her life. For nearly 4 decades, neither of them fully revealed just how deep that bond actually went. Now, Christina has finally started to open up, and the stories she is sharing change everything fans thought they knew about America's favorite dysfunctional TV family. Ed was in his early 40s when the show began. He had already been through the ups and downs of Hollywood and understood what the industry could do to young people, especially young women suddenly thrust into the spotlight. Christina was playing Kelly Bundy, a character written as a teenage sex symbol. The jokes were often suggestive, the outfits were revealing, and the attention from fans and media could have easily led to dark places. But Ed made sure that never happened. In interviews that most fans have never seen, Christina has described how Ed would shield her from certain conversations on set, stepping in when things became too adult and ensuring that even though the show pushed every boundary imaginable, the environment around her remained safe and professional. This was not part of his job description. It was Ed O'Neill choosing, quietly and consistently, to be a genuinely good human being. Crew members who worked on the show have shared stories over the years about watching this relationship develop. They would see Ed pull Christina aside between takes to check on her. They would notice him positioning himself near her during difficult scenes and quietly redirecting conversations that started heading in inappropriate directions. There were moments the cameras never captured. Times when Ed drove Christina home after late-night shoots because he did not want her traveling alone. Times when he called her mother to reassure her that her daughter was being looked after. And times when he stood up to producers who wanted to push Christina into situations that made her uncomfortable. What makes their connection even more remarkable is how it evolved over the years. In the early seasons, it was clearly a mentor and student relationship. Ed had the experience, Christina had the talent. But as time went on, the dynamic shifted. Christina grew more confident, found her voice, and began contributing to the creative process in ways that surprised even the most experienced members of the production team. By the final seasons, she was no longer simply following Ed's lead. She was holding her own, and Ed could not have been prouder. Their bond was tested in 1989 when something threatened to destroy the show entirely. A woman named Terry Ricalta from Michigan watched an episode and was so outraged that she launched a full-scale boycott campaign. She contacted major advertisers, wrote letters, and appeared on news programs, determined to get Married with Children canceled. Her campaign worked, at least at first. Coca-Cola pulled their advertising. McDonald's withdrew their support. Dozens of other companies followed. Network executives were having emergency meetings, and there were serious conversations about ending the show immediately. For Christina, then 17 years old, the situation was terrifying. This show was her entire career, everything she had worked for, and it suddenly looked like it could all disappear because of one woman's campaign. But Ed O'Neill refused to let fear take over. He personally took it upon himself to calm the younger cast members, sitting down with Christina and David Faustino, who played her brother Bud, and telling them that no matter what happened, they had created something special and should be proud of what they had accomplished together. He also contacted the press himself, giving interviews that defended not just the show but the young people who worked on it, making sure that in every conversation about the controversy, someone was speaking up for his TV kids. As it turned out, the boycott backfired spectacularly. All the negative attention made people curious about this show they had never watched, and ratings went up, way up. The publicity that was supposed to destroy Married with Children ended up making it more popular than ever. But what Christina has said she remembers most from that terrifying period is not the ratings victory. It is Ed O'Neill standing beside her when everything seemed to be falling apart, steady and composed while everyone else was panicking. That experience bonded the cast together in ways audiences never fully understood. They had faced potential destruction as a team and emerged stronger for it. When the show finally ended in 1997, it did not end the way anyone expected. There was no grand finale, no emotional goodbye episode, no closure for the characters or the actors who had played them for over a decade. The show was simply cancelled, and that was that. One day they were filming new episodes. The next day, they were not. For 11 years, Ed and Christina had worked together almost every single day. They had celebrated birthdays together, watched each other grow and change, and created hundreds of episodes of television that would go on to influence countless other shows. And then, suddenly, it was over. Christina has described how strange and disorienting that period was, how one day you have an entire family around you, a routine, a place to go every morning, people who know you better than almost anyone else in your life, and then the next day it all just stops. The set gets torn down, everyone scatters, and the family you spent your formative years with disappears almost overnight. But what she has revealed is that she and Ed never truly separated. Even after the show ended, they maintained their connection, calling each other, meeting for meals, with Ed continuing to check in on her career and offer support, whether she asked for it or not. The television father and daughter relationship had quietly become something very real. Both went on to remarkable careers. Christina appeared in films like Anchorman and starred in television series including Samantha Who and Dead to Me. Ed found a whole new generation of fans through Modern Family, winning multiple awards and becoming even more celebrated than he had been as Al Bundy. But in interviews, when people asked about the highlights of his career, he would often bring up Christina, talking about watching her grow from a teenager into the formidable actress she had become. Then, on August 10, 2021, Christina posted something on social media that stopped the world. She announced that she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a chronic disease that affects the central nervous system and can cause problems with mobility, balance, vision, and cognitive function. The disease had been discovered while she was filming the final season of Dead to Me. There is no cure. For Christina, the diagnosis meant that her entire life had to be restructured from the ground up. She now uses a cane to walk. She has spoken openly about experiencing cognitive fog and about the grief she has felt, grief for the life she thought she would have, the future she had planned, and the version of herself that existed before the diagnosis. When Ed found out about her illness, he immediately reached out. He did not send a brief text or a quick phone call. He made sure Christina knew he was there for her in ways that went far beyond what former co-workers typically do for each other. The entire Married with Children cast rallied around her. Katie Segal, who had played her mother Peggy Bundy, was particularly vocal in her support. David Faustino and Amanda Bess also showed their love and encouragement. But it was Ed's response that meant the most to Christina. After all those years, he was still being her protector. In November 2022, Christina made her first major public appearance since revealing her diagnosis, receiving a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She arrived using her cane, her movements slower than they once were, but she was there, present, brave, and surrounded by people who loved her. The crowd that gathered was enormous. Her speech left everyone in tears. She spoke about her diagnosis, the fear and uncertainty she had faced, and what it meant to have people in her life who had shown up for her when things got hard. 2 months later came a moment that would be seared into the memories of everyone who witnessed it. Christina appeared at the Emmy Awards in January 2023, walking onto the stage with her cane. The audience did something entirely spontaneous. Every single person in that room rose to their feet, and they kept applauding for nearly a full minute. Christina stood there, visibly overwhelmed, as wave after wave of support washed over her. In her signature fashion, she responded with humor, quipping that all that applause was shaking her brain. The audience laughed through their tears. It was a perfect encapsulation of who she is, simultaneously heartbreaking and hilarious. Behind the scenes that night, Ed O'Neill was among those who made sure Christina knew she was loved. Their exchanges, though private, reflected the same dynamic that had existed since she was 15. He was still looking out for her. He was still making sure she was okay. The TV father was still being a real one. Since her diagnosis, Christina has channeled her energy into a podcast called Messy, co-hosted with actress Jamie Lynn Sigler, who also lives with Ms. The podcast has given her a platform to share her experiences in a format that accommodates her health needs, and it has also opened up new possibilities for how a potential Married with Children reunion might work. It does not have to be a traditional sitcom revival requiring long hours on a soundstage. There are alternative formats, documentaries, specials, virtual reunions, that could bring the cast together on terms that work for everyone. What is certain is that the cast has made their position clear. Ed O'Neill has stated that he would only participate in a reunion that includes Christina. The other cast members echo the same sentiment. Whatever form it takes, it must include all of them or none of them. They are, and always have been, a package deal. The story of Christina Applegate and Ed O'Neill is ultimately a story about what matters most. It is not about fame, ratings, or awards. It is about the connections we make with other people and about showing up for each other when things get hard. When Christina walked onto that set as a 15-year-old girl, she could never have imagined where life would take her or that the man playing her TV father would become one of the most important figures in her life. Nearly 4 decades later, that bond is still going strong. Beneath all the crude jokes and outrageous situations that made Married with Children famous, there was always a family that stuck together no matter what. As it turns out, that was not just acting. That was real.